So I'd like to bring up the two experts who are currently in the room so far. First, many of you have already met him yesterday or heard him earlier in the student session. Francisco Bravo, Senior Supply Chain Director for Audi Mexico. Paco Bravo, as they call him. As we described yesterday, Paco is responsible for the supply chain here in Mexico for Audi, and has a background in many areas of IT and digitalization, which has really brought some great insights for us over the last few days. Our next expert has actually, I believe this is the first time he's joined us at Automotive Logistics Supply Chain Mexico, but we know him from Brazil, where he spoke several times for us. He's working for Volkswagen Truck and Bus, or let's say a version of that company, since 2004. Has had key roles in service parts, as mentioned, in Brazil, and he joined MAN in Mexico in January 21. Responsible for spares parts, technical service, and dealer management and workshops. MAN is now, of course, also Volkswagen Truck and Bus here in Mexico. Very, very happy to welcome Fabio Garcia to the stage. Fabio. Obrigado. Thank you, Fabio. Please join us. And as you can see, we hope that Siegfried Jung from BMW will be able to join us some point during the panel. But like I said, we will kick off. You know, the premise of this panel is to talk about making Mexico world class, bringing it up to the next level of logistics. But actually, I want to start kind of to see if you even agree with the premise of whether Mexico is or isn't already world class, because we sometimes talk about the two Mexicos. There's the Mexico highly advanced and efficient, and there's other parts which are perhaps less so. But from both of your perspectives, I'd like to get some of your view on how you see your operations already, and then looking ahead. So Fabio, I'm going to start with you, especially since you're also giving us, I think for the first time this event, the service part and aftermarket perspective, which is also very valuable, and we're very glad we can have it here.
Hello, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. First time in Mexico. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the invitation. For perspective of after sales, is a little bit different than all you see these 2 days. The after sales is we have to support our clients to keep moving the products. Basically, we are talking about outbound. All the speaker talk about inbound. For after sales, we talk outbound, mainly with spare parts that we have to send for our dealers to support the clients. And for this industry, for truck and bus, we are always talking about uptime. Yes, we have to keep our the truck or buses running most of the time possible. So if you're not so familiarized about uptime is opposite than downtime. That's our target. You have to keep moving. You must reach very high uptime for our clients. That's our targets, our objective for our logistics for spare parts.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And Paco, you have, in some ways, you have a fairly new plant, so that obviously would benefit from being more state of the art. But how do you see it?
So I would say a German giant, no? Yes and no, we are the state of the art in a lot of things. Yeah. And of course, there are still challenges, but as you said, our plant is fairly new, and we have been able to have from the beginning very top of the shelf technology. But also, if I take a look at the room, some of you as our partners are working in the top level of the world-class logistics, and I am really thankful for that, because that allows us to have the operations that we have right now. Just as a reference, in our last audit of VDA 6.3, we achieved 94%, which is the same level that our factory in Ingolstadt is achieving. And with a fairly new plant, with a fairly new young group of people, we are achieving already world-class logistics. If you think in what is still ahead of us, we have, of course, as a country, a lot of things to do, a lot of things to achieve in partnerships, in infrastructure, in a lot of things, in laws the framework where our logistic works, but if you think that Mexico as a country has achieved this level of performance, of course I think we are on a good path.
Excellent. Well, let's turn to the present, where we know we spent the last 3 days really talking about all the disruptions, which we might also classify as the sort of new normal or the new never normal, to use a phrase that I quite like. What does, when you look into the immediate term of the, let's say, next 1 or 2 years, how do you see this continuing to impact you? Do you see it impacting at the same level, or are you expecting some degree of stability? Fabio.
The COVID, the pandemic, impacted a lot, too much. As I said, we are in the truck and bus industry. The pandemic stopped the supply chains. They stopped the buses, the trucks. So for us, if a bus is stopped, a truck is stopped, we don't have the demand to provide parts. The buses, the trucks are stopped. We don't need maintenance. We don't need services. So our demand decreased a lot. For example, for the bus industry, decreased 80%. So our consumption of parts decreased 80%. So our history in 1 year and a half was close to 20%, nothing. So we didn't have more history to predict the future. So we need to find ways to get over that problem in our supply chain.
Absolutely.
So one action we have to do, we establish a partnership very strong with our suppliers. Fortunately, our suppliers are inside our group, because we bought basically from Brazil or from Germany our parts that we need. So we have to start the operation with our dealers, establishing a bunch of parts they have to have in there. Then we downstream all the supply chain with our supplier in Puebla, who Volkswagen is our supplier for logistics. Then we go to Brazil with the same parts. You have to have these parts. Then Brazil goes with suppliers. We have to stabilize the supply chain to avoid a lack of parts. Because the history was with a lot of problems. Then we have to create a different way to create a normal way to manage all the demand or the forecasting in the supply chain, like to see in the future more than the past.
Thank you, Fabio. And as you can see, we've Siegfried, I referenced that we took a semiconductor strategy here, and we started with an unfinished panel, and then the component has arrived, and we can complete it now. I'm very glad that we could. So we can catch you up and introduce you. We've only missed one question, which we can come back to. It is my pleasure to now welcome Siegfried Jung, who very recently took over responsibility as Vice President Production Control, Production Systems and Logistics at BMW Group plant San Luis Potosí, but has a 30-year career in many areas, including of supply chain logistics, has worked in South Africa, in US, as well of course in central functions in Germany. Siegfried, very glad you could make it. Even with the delay, we know what the traffic is like here, so.
Thank you very much for having me. My apologies for being late. Thank you.
So the first question we asked, actually, because the premise of this panel, raising the bar, making Mexico's automotive logistics and supply chain world class, I actually, both you and your colleague from Audi are in a, let's say, somewhat privileged situation. You're recently taking over greenfield operations, which can in many ways already be probably classed as world-class, state-of-the-art. But I'm interested, especially in your very fresh perspective now here in Mexico. Do you already see what you're doing in San Luis Potosí as world-class, as leading in comparison to other facilities in logistics, or do you see those rooms to improve? Maybe we can just start there.
So yeah, thank you for the introduction. Yes, I'm in the country now since August 1st. So I took over the position of Logistics Vice President, and Yeah, what have I encountered here? Clearly, our plant in San Luis Potosí is keeping up with the global standards that we have in all other plants. I have met a lot of young talent here, very ambitious young people, so we have a pretty young workforce if you compare it to other areas. And clearly with the logistics that we've put in place in San Luis Potosí, we're clearly at a standard as we know it from all other plants, be it the ones that have been long time established in Europe, but also in the younger ones, whether it's in China or in the US. So from my point of view, we're up to it. Yes, with the workforce, we're very keen on keeping improving it. And clearly with the challenges we faced, be it this year, but also last year, there were many changes that we had to go through, and we will still go through. So having said that, yes, the answer is we're at the, I would say, world level, yes.
Excellent. So, and then now sliding back into the question that we were just addressing, looking at the disruption that we know we've all been living through the past years, and as you can imagine, we've discussed quite a bit the past 2 days. Fabio just gave us some insight into how he sees 2023 looking in terms of whether this stabilizes or we still living through it. From your point of view, what is BMW's outlook for in San Luis Potosí over the next year? Does the situation stabilize somewhat, or are we still expecting high level of disruption?
So maybe before I look into the future, let me give you a little bit of insight what's happening currently. So the challenges we've been facing, and clearly my colleagues here on the stage have the same problems, were on the one hand that we're facing the conflict between Russia and the Ukraine. So there are a couple of suppliers that were affected, that are BMW suppliers with JIT production. So in this case, a very tight supply. On the one hand, the second topic is clearly the situation that we're facing repeatedly in China with the COVID lockdowns, where we've seen that at some point we have some stabilization because the situation got better, and then all of a sudden we have a drawback due to new occurrences. The third topic is obviously the shortage that we're facing in container availability and shipping line capacities, port personnel, which slows down the business a lot. So all these things, they were somehow predictable after a couple of months. So we were able to manage these kind of challenges. What is the most or the biggest impact on our production here in San Luis, and we've been hit very hard, especially in the beginning of the year, is the semiconductor situation, since our let's say, prognosis horizon is up to 10 days. That's it. Yeah. So clearly, our suppliers, they're expecting more forecast from our side. However, we're not able to give it, since we are in the same situation that we're not being given any other information. So now, looking forward at next year, we clearly expect the continuation of this situation in the semiconductor market, so we do not expect any relaxation, especially not in the first half of the year. And with this, we know exactly that our main challenge for next year will be to remain or even become more flexible in terms of demand.
Absolutely. So that point already on 10-day horizon, and knowing something about BMW production, and I think 7 or 8 days of those are probably the frozen period, right? So it's extremely tight window to actually managing it. Paco, coming back to you, is that already quite similar in the current dynamic? And then the question, as we said, your outlook for 23.
I think what is going to be stable is the way we manage this crisis, because the crises are not going to go away. The bumps on the way will keep coming, and we don't even know what is going to be the next crisis. So I agree with Siegfried, the semiconductor situation will not improve in the short term, but on the other hand, we don't know what is coming to us. So what has to be stable is our processes, our way we manage these crises, and how do we face the challenges with more flexibility and adaptability together with our partners and service providers to manage this kind of situations. And this is more stable, I have to say. The way we react, the processes that we have in place, this is what is winning stability across the way.
Yeah, and I mean, we spoke with you yesterday around some of the role that data and data analytics can play in that. I mean, was that the key for it, or do you think it's the tighter integration across departments and with your partners, for example? Coming back to you on that one, Paco, and then to ask.
Absolutely. So the communication is a most important topic right now, together with our service providers and suppliers, because our suppliers are basically knowing better their own process. They know better when they are having or facing any problem. And as long as we get the information right on time, we have enough possibilities to react, and the palette of options that we have to react is bigger as soon as we get information on time. The problem is when we try to hide, or when we try to not to inform immediately about those problems. Asking for transparency is a dream of every logistic. Everybody wants to have systems that give us transparency up to tier 6, I don't know. But be careful with what you wish, because once you have it, you don't know what to do with it. So the problem here is, how do we improve communication? We don't want to manage our suppliers. We don't want to manage the tier 2. We don't want to manage the service providers. That's why we are partnership with you, because you know better than us to do your business. So in this case, what we need is to have more communication, to experience from each other, to have quicker feedback, and not just unilateral communication, but bilateral communication in this regard.
And Siegfried, what has really been the key for BMW in being able to, I mean, stabilize maybe the wrong word, but somehow stably manage that very tight window with your partners?
Yeah, stabilizing is the right keyword. We got used to this situation, so unfortunately we had to get used to the situation. So we have a three-way approach. The one is pretty local, what we do in the plant. The second one is what we do with our colleagues in the R&D area in the FITS in Munich. And the third topic is what are we doing more or less in a task force mode, where we have basically all the global partners involved, from up to our board members. So what are we doing locally? Locally, clearly, just like you said, we have the same approach of going into very, very close communication with our suppliers and service providers, because communication is the key. There's very, very much changing information on the short term, changing information, so we need to have this communication line open with all our partners. That's the one thing. The second thing is that obviously we're trying to implement more and more digital solutions to have a more predictive approach, as we've seen it in the past, but maybe on that later. The second thing that I mentioned is that obviously we, our R&D colleagues in the FITS in Munich, they trying to identify components that are more easily available, so that we're not too specific, so we do not have this very specific shortage in our production. So that has helped a lot. And then thirdly, like I said, we have a daily communication in a task force that was established 2 years ago, where we basically inform up to our board members as to what the situation is and what a correct reaction would be.
Fabio, turning to you on the service part side, have you had to rebalance your distribution network to manage the uncertainty in the supply of certain parts?
Yes, for after sales, we have to you have to have one step front of our demand. Basically, as I said, for truck and buses, we have to work together the uptime for our vehicles. So we have to be very careful about our stock, about our parts, and we can work with some parts as a predictive. Do you know how many maintenance our fleet can do? Then you know that you have to use oil filters, so much more parts. So you know there are predictive parts that depends the age, how much kilometers. You know these parts are going to fail. Then you can do a predictive. But there are other parts that you can't do a predictive, because we will fail. about the parts. So we have a bunch of parts you can do work as predictive. Some parts you have to use your history, but your history has a problem because the pandemic, all the things that happened, that you have a very huge jeopardize to establish the servicing with the clients. So what can I say? We need to have with the parts on stock when the client needs. There's a lot of urgency with the dealers. If one truck is stopped for your supply chain, you have a problem. If it's with a lack of trucks, lack of drivers, we can leave a truck stopped. So we have to be with all parts, all the people on the workshop trained. We have to be all the tools to the people be faster and solve the trucks to reach the uptime and to keep the truck or buses running.
Understood. So I want to come back onto the predictive move towards predictive supply chains, as you alluded to. We heard some from you on this yesterday, Paco, so maybe we could start with Siegfried on what that has looked like at BMW, and perhaps specifically in Mexico, but perhaps I imagine also as part of the global strategy.
So last year we started a new plant strategy with our plant leader and CEO, Harald Gottscher, and as part of this plant strategy, we also started an initiative which is called Digital Plant. So this Digital Plant initiative consists of various work packages, and I'll give you one example. We have a work package that's dealing with so-called predictive KPIs. So we went through all the technologies, whether it's body shop, paint shop, assembly, but also logistics, and try to identify what would be a helpful tool for us to be more predictive in order to cope with these volatile times. And one example I would like to share here is the prediction that we're doing with our sea freight supply. So we have a tool in place now that that's based on data analytics, that's using artificial intelligence, and it's also learning from the decisions we've made in the past. So we're feeding the system with human knowledge in order to have it learn. And so far the accuracy of the prediction that we've seen is above 99%, which is very remarkable. And that has helped us tremendously in identifying problems along the supply chain well ahead of time, and that gives us sufficient opportunity then to react to this shortage, be it by adapting our production, be it by starting air freight or whatever means of expedite we need. And this has helped us tremendously. So this is the path we want to continue. Obviously, we're still working on improving this tool, but so far it has proven to be very helpful.
So and that tool was developed with in-house at BMW or together with some IT specialist partners?
No, we did this as an in-house solution. So we worked with our key users in our logistics area, together with our IT guys and with the support from the central IT. Because clearly it's based on the data cloud hub, and there we have clear dependencies on the central IT. But so far it has proven to be a good collaboration between the plants, and it's unique for BMW at the moment. However, I'm pretty sure as soon as it's reached the level of maturity that we expect from it, that we might roll it out to other overseas plants as well.
Paco, you background out of a group IT function and certainly would recognize the potential around these infrastructures. How is it at Audi? Is there, have you are you connected to the cloud infrastructure with the group, or is it, can you give us a little bit of an outline there?
Yes, we have a group cloud from the Volkswagen Group, and we are trying to put our data into this cloud, for instance, to manage the stocks worldwide, especially with the semiconductor situation. But we are pushing forward to get more data integrated so that we can perform better analysis and also predictive analysis analyze what can come in the future and how do we react in the best way, especially also connecting to our production control to create the program which will bring us the most out of it in terms of available resources.
And the next key step for Audi to achieve that, is it for you in logistics, is it sort of integrating TMS or APIs? I mean, just in terms of what the next step in that infrastructure should look like.
Well, for us, the terms of infrastructure and predictability will be, first of all, the automation strategy that we are driving with our logistic planning department. And second of all is to be able to collect enough data so that we can stabilize our production. I was mentioning yesterday we were able to achieve 97% of stable pellet chain in our program, because if you cannot influence the external factors, we are trying to influence at least the internal factors, where we have a bigger influence, so that we create the stability for our suppliers and service providers so that we can achieve together at least this goal, but knowing what can go wrong and how can we react if something goes even worse.
Absolutely. Fabio, I think in Aftersales, there's always been a fair amount of predictive data used, not least in the sales and distribution side of forecasting. Is it something you're using more now for your logistics and distribution too?
Yes, we used to use, for spare parts from Volkswagen, used to use a company system. Yeah. Who do this, all the prediction, the consumption that we're going to use in the future. Also for MAN, we have SAP systems. We have our just paradise is how to input the correct variables for the system to do the correct revision, the forecast. Because it's not easy for in these times to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we heard this morning, you wouldn't have been here yet, Siegfried, but we had a presentation from Nissan on how they had managed the semiconductor crisis, and particularly with visibility up the tier chain, breaking that down to tier 3, 4, 5 within the semiconductor chain. I'd imagine that would have been likely managed fairly centrally with BMW, but in Mexico as well, has that also been key at a local level to really look up the tier supply chain and be able to better predict and manage what might be coming even within those tight windows?
It's a two-way answer. The answer within logistics, clearly no. We stick to the principle that we manage our first tiers only, because like Paco said before, the suppliers, they know their business much better. They know their supply chain much better than we do. However, we support them in terms of what we think that the next weeks or months might bring. So yes, we do that, but we're not digging deeper. Yeah. If I look at our purchasing colleagues, though, they have gone much deeper now. Clearly, they want to understand the supply chain down to the mine. Yeah, so they're looking ore mine. But this is clearly their approach to make sure that whenever there are parts or components that are not easily available on the world market, that we try to secure some quantities with our own purchasing departments, but that's our major approach is basically to do it through purchasing, but not through logistics.
Understood. One thing we've heard a lot over the last 2 days as well is talk of control towers and opportunities in control tower. I mean, I've been covering logistics for 15, 16 years, and we've talked of control towers all that time, so it's not particularly a new concept, but it does seem to be something new in how maybe the approach or potential is for it. And I was interested in having the panel's view on that, starting with you, Paco. Are you already using a control tower or a new kind of digital control tower as part of your strategy?
Let me put it in this way, we use several, no? So we have, for instance, Kuehne+Nagel as a partner for one of our control towers for specific parts of the process, and we want to have the control tower intelligent and smart, located wherever you need it for that particular process. We have a central control room for our material steering, for our production control and so on. It's really modern, and it was really very well equipped, where you can see different parts of the processes and control and take decisions out of it. But the most important part is really to integrate small control towers wherever you need it for the time you need it, and then to start thinking also in the future, where are you going to need the next one, and does it need to be integrated, or you can have it separated for one particular purpose? But we are doing that.
Staying on the sort of production side, coming back to you and that, Siegfried, is that familiar for BMW? You have a similar approach? I think San Luis Potosí also has some innovations in this area.
Yeah, we actually had last week we had a visit from our senior vice president for the global logistics, and the first thing we did is to take him to our control room. So yes, we have a control room in place, which is, in my opinion, state of the art for BMW, where we also unite the physical logistics activities, the material control activities, and the production control activities. And it helped us tremendously in creating the transparency that we need in order to react flexibly to whatever event might come up, and control incidents in a much more digitalized way than we did it in the past. So in the past we relied on the experience of certain people, be it on the user side but also in the management. And this now is clearly being supported by intelligent data that we have available. So there's a great room, or big room, with many screens in it, and you can clearly see immediately all the indicators on how the production system is doing and what to expect in the next couple of days.
Fabio, is this becoming a part of the process in Aftersales too, or is it disjointed across more?
It is distant for us. My control is different.
Yeah.
My control to monitoring the trucks off road in our dealers.
Okay.
That every day we are monitoring how many trucks we are with problem in our dealers. Then I have a meeting every day in our company to try to find the solution to put this truck on the street again. It's different how we do it the other side. We have to put our vehicles client on the street.
Understood. Yeah.
That's our monitoring.
If I turn to the vehicle logistics side, both Audi and BMW, of course, significant exporters from Mexico. And we know as a global trend, vehicle inventories were constrained, there were longer waiting times, longer pipeline ordering, a lot more focus on ETA, and trying to be more accurate with ETA. And I'm just, again, interested from the perspectives of here in Mexico, how this change in your processes to try to improve this, including for your overseas aspect and customers. We heard from Nissan yesterday about putting in a new system to try to do this as well. May I start with you on that, Paco?
As I mentioned yesterday, we are doing analysis and we are trying to predict based on historical data what is going to be the behavior of the weather, of the situation of the port, and then based on that make a better forecasting for our outbound operations. That is one big part of the topic. On the other hand, we are optimizing our own processes to reduce the stays at the port due to several reasons. No, we want to avoid damages on the cars staying at the port for too long. So we are now delivering almost just in time the cars to the port in the moment when the vessel arrives, so that we don't have too many of these issues. But we have changed backwards our process. No? So from the end of point of loading the car into the vessel, optimizing the processes backwards so that we can achieve the better result and reduce the time to market. As I mentioned yesterday, we optimize the time without taking into consideration the amount of, if you put example cars that need to have a semiconductor, if you just take the efficiency of the process, 40% was optimized in 12 months.
40%, okay, a big improvement. Siegfried at BMW.
So on our side, clearly the key word is flexibility. Since we're facing now for quite some time these port congestions, especially in Europe, but also in the US recently. So we're always trying to use as many ports as possible. Currently we're using just two, one on the eastern part of the country and the other one on the western part. But also, like Paco mentioned, we're also looking at how do we get the cars to the ports.
Yeah.
And there we clearly emphasized on using all means of transportation, be it rail or be it trucks. And so far we've been very successful in distributing the cars more or less equally between rail and truck. And that gives us the highest flexibility if the need should be that one or the other is facing shortages. And with this we've been pretty successful, even though we know that we're seeing vessel delays, we're seeing port congestions and all these kind of things. So that has not led to any significant deterioration of our inventory figures, but is well under control at the moment.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's true that you mentioned the situation in Europe. Here in Mexico, maybe we quick to talk about problems in Lázaro and Veracruz, but may not be aware that in Northern Europe right now, the major ports are basically full for vehicles. You almost can't get services to Bremerhaven and places like that, and Zeebrugge. So it's quite an astounding situation. Fabio, I'm interested, I want to turn to some other technology to look at opportunities when we look towards, again, really world-class. One area is in AR, VR, augmented reality. And I think in the after-sales part, this is an interesting development. We saw in the pandemic, I think, some shifts as well. I'm interested in how AR, VR is impacting in your operations.
Yes, we are developing remote support for dealer network. It's a kind of Google Glass, but it's not a Google Glass, it's a more tough one, because you need to have a more tough board. You have to be resistant water. If you fall down, you have to be a very strong glasses. With the glasses, we are doing one pilot to support for our dealers. If you have a problem in your dealership, the technician can do a diagnosis, or they don't have the full expert to solve a problem of a vehicle. They can do a meeting with an expert and buy these glasses. The expert could be in Mexico, Brazil, or Germany, are seeing the same image that the technical are seeing in Cancun dealer. Then they can support how to do the diagnosis, how to fix the glasses. They can send the diagrams, they can send information how to do the fix with the car. Then the technical become the hands for a technical expert in the other side of the world. So that you can avoid trips, we can be faster, you can be in a lot of parts in the same time. We are doing a pilot using this technology. Also with the same technology, we are doing trainings. We are doing trainings for our dealership, for clients, in first person. The person who received the training, I've seen, I have the feeling that they are doing the solution of the problem, are fixing the problem that we have in the truck or the buses. That we are using this technology, this tool is our hardware. The hardware must have a software to work. We are doing a pilot with Teams, but we found better other softwares to do a two-way connection. You can draw in the diagrams and says for the technical, please connect this point to this point. Then their technical have a screen here. They are seeing the draw that the technician outside are doing for solve the problem. It is a very interesting. We can save time to solve the problems for the clients if do more assertive in diagnostics.
And when we look at plants and warehouses, I think there's also opportunities in AR, VR. I've already seen examples, I believe, at both Audi and BMW for some training for various types of things, at least in Germany. Is AR, VR something you're also looking at? Paco here, but also for the Mexican operations?
Virtual reality, we did a pilot to train the people to put the boxes in the trolley, how to engage and disengage the boxes in the trolley. It was very successful in terms of what we learned about technology, what are the limitations of the technology, and how to deploy it to be able to use in a fairly major scale. We are trying to find other use cases for this type of technology, to do pilots where we learn more how this technology could help us. Because sometimes when you apply the technology to one particular use case, you learn that this was maybe not the best use case to use the technology, but you learn how to use it in some other places in the processes, and that is our approach. So we learn from that, and we are trying to explore more and more how can we use it in other parts of our process to bring more revenue.
Exciting technology at BMW.
Yeah, not so much in the plant here. We're focusing more on this digital plant initiative that's dealing especially with predictive maintenance, predictive KPIs, IT landscape, those kind of things. But we're in very close contact with our central logistics guys that make a lot of activities, be it in the US, but also in the European plants. And we're in constant exchange with them. But we said since we do not have those use cases as we have them in the US, we're focusing on supporting the US plant rather than having the activities here in Mexico.
I think when we look to the future and we talk about truly world-class logistics, meeting and achieving sustainability targets clearly are part of this. We heard this morning from Jose Zazaya that Mexico certainly needs a stronger clean energy policy and plan. This is not something this panel can control, so I'm not necessarily asking on that side. Well, you can influence hopefully via AMIA and other things, but in terms of your operations in Mexico, how significant already are your kind of green approaches and strategies, and what is your plan and horizon over the next, say, 3 to 5 years to reduce those? I'll start with you again, Siegfried.
So clearly, I mentioned before that we started a new plant initiative or a strategy last year, and part of it was also the environmental aspect. So what can be done to make our plant a greener place? And I'm happy to announce that we are very well on the way to become the first BMW CO2 neutral plant. The plan is to become that in 2024. Wow. So how do we do this? On the one hand, we increase the use of solar panels. So we will most probably reach around about 30% of the electricity that the plant uses will be produced with solar panels. We're in talks with our suppliers, of course, to see what else can be done in the supply chain to further reduce CO2 emissions. Clearly, all the means of transportation that we use within the plant are fully electrical, so no combustion devices there anymore. And on the product side, we will continue looking into reusing material, recyclable material that is available locally. So to also reduce the footprint there. And obviously when looking into future products or even in the current product, when we do the sourcing, we're clearly focusing on having more and more localization, because clearly with this we reduce the CO2 footprint in terms of inbound drastically, plus and the resources that are available locally are used much more. So an entire bunch of activities that we're doing. There are further activities planned, but not yet at the level that we can communicate it. But clearly, our endeavor is to become a green plant and to be one of the leading green plants in the BMW group.
So they have Mexico leading the way here, certainly at the plant level, and then other work to go in the supply chain too. For Audi, How would you describe it?
We have a Mission Zero strategy, which comprehends the different parts of the processes. We are not only focusing on one environmental aspect, but several. And we have a very strong cooperation with Peter Coltay from Volkswagen de Mexico and the colleagues from Volkswagen in Chattanooga to create synergies across the 3 plants and to maximize all the possibilities that we have to optimize our different parts of Mission Zero strategy, because this is a main goal in the Volkswagen Group, and we are part of the goals of the brand Audi, and therefore we are working really, really strong in this direction.
And Fabio, from the after-sales side.
Yes, I'll talk about the Digital as a group. No? As Trito Group is a part of Volkswagen Group, has a lot of brands, Scania, Navy, Starbucks, Volkswagen Truck and Bus, and MAN. There's a group compromise to this decarbonization. But for our industry, it's very interesting because the transportation are responsible for 26% of total carbon emission on in the world. When we see the scopes, the scope number 1 is our direct emissions, facilities and own transport. 2 is electricity, how to heating, and the 3 is all the supply chain, the upstream, the downstream, and inside that, the scope 3 are the emission of our products, who is the category 11. If you see just the scope of 3, close to 80% of the emission are coming from our products. That's the real work that we have to do. With all the scope 1, scope 2, we are working on that. We have targets to reduce a lot, but the real one is to reduce the emission of the products. That comes from new alternative fuels.
Yeah,
that's the way. That's why we have to work on alternative fuels.
And in BMW and Audi supply chain, alternative fuels as transitional technology, is this also something you'd expect I would expect will play a role also here in Mexico for you?
Yes, so for now we have started with the plug-in hybrid production here in San Luis Potosí. That was last year. But also we're investigating as to what fuels could be used now, whether it's LNG, whether it's RNG, all these opportunities, and we're in different discussions already with the local authorities, but also with companies that could support us in approaches that we've seen in the US, where we have made very good experience in recovering, for instance, gas from a landfill or so. So things that are pretty unknown here in Mexico, but again, we need to have these discussions on the one hand with the companies, but also with the authorities to see as to what kind of infrastructure we're doing. Because, like I mentioned, with the plug-in hybrids, we're set up charging stations within the plant. We're setting up charging stations in the region, and obviously to further foster this production of plug-in hybrids, or even later on. Fully electrical cars, then clearly the infrastructure is needed. So that's basically where we're in discussions to find out what the plans are, to see whether it's a viable business model or not.
So from the Audi perspective, in the supply chain, we are looking forward to be able to use maybe from our group companies like Scania, the possibility to use electrical trucks also for internal or short distance movements of material. And maybe at this time is not the right moment to introduce it, but we are looking forward to do it as soon as they are available and as soon as they are possible to implement here. From the production perspective, we are in the same path. No? We are producing already plug hybrid and mild hybrid, and looking forward to the next generation of products that will come to the factory. But of course, for our logistic, it will play a major role here. How do we implement green energies in our supply chain?
Absolutely. I know we're coming a bit late on time, and I thank you for that, and I thank our panel for staying with us on it. I don't want to lose the opportunity. Maybe we have time for 1 or 2 audience questions if anyone wants to have a question. We have microphones going around. You're welcome to answer now. I see a hand. Sorry. Sorry. I was getting a little blinded on this side. We have a question there. If you can just say your name and company.
Hi.
Or where you're
from. Hi, my name is Gerardo Arevalo. I'm from Pan American University, but I work at Global Car Mexico National Sales Company. My question is, you talk about how do you do in your internal process. However, I want to flip the coin. How macroeconomic policies affects your supply chain from being a world-class supply chain, as customs, open market?
So the question was, how does macroeconomic and geopolitical, like customs and trade rules, how are these affecting your ability to have a world-class supply chain? Correct? Yeah.
I think those have challenged us to be prepared for it because you cannot predict those things, no? So you have to be aware and to make the information available for your people as soon as they come up. So just as an example, in Audi we have a legal communication strategy. So our legal colleagues put all the information together and send it to us to be evaluated on time so that we can define the impacts of those changes in the law so that we are able to react faster with better information and adapt to it, because you cannot change it, unfortunately. No? Geopolitical changes like what we are looking now at Europe, price increases like what happened with the cardboard or magnesium or other commodities, those are things you cannot influence. You can know quicker about those changes, and that is key. If you know quicker, you can maybe adapt also faster your organization to be facing those challenges, but you will not be able to change it immediately. What you can do is collaborate with associations like AMIA in Mexico to create this front and share the challenges together and to try to face them in a better way.
To paraphrase an American poet, I think running a supply chain without trade barriers would be like playing tennis without a net. Exactly. So it wouldn't be fun. Any other audience question? Maybe we can take one more audience. We have a question right here in the middle.
Hi, I'm Franco Corona from Universidad Panamericana. Well, earlier today we spoke about the transition needs to maintain competitiveness in the supply chain. And one part that we talked about was the legal and fiscal side of it. You said that you were making the transition to more renewables, more solar energy, but have you had any problems, any fiscal problems, any legal problems to make the transition, or has there been any trouble that keep you from easing into renewables easier?
We didn't.
Maybe one point that I can comment on this is that I mentioned that we will increase the amount of electricity that will be produced by solar panels. So the first question we're always getting from our, especially board members from Germany, is as to why we're not increasing it even further. And one topic is that you do not have the possibility here in Mexico, if you produce more electricity than you use, that you can feed it into the grid and then sell it as available electricity for other institutions or other entities. So this is something that's limiting us, and this is why we are not planning to increase this amount of solar electricity production, since we know that we need to be able to use it up ourselves.
I saw my point of view for the truck industry. Electricity is one of the scenarios, but there are a lot of alternative fuel that can be used. There's a GNV is now we can use, but we don't have infrastructure to use now. But is a possibility to use. We have ethanol. We can use that. In Brazil, we use a lot ethanol. Then I saw from sugarcane, there's a renewable fuel. I'm seeing some studies they are trying to do ethanol from the plant to produce tequila.
Oh, yeah, agave.
Yeah, it's from agave. They are trying to produce ethanol from agave. If they could reach that, it's a good opportunity for Mexico. For us, I don't know, but because it's going to lack of tequila in the market. But if we can produce...
That's not a shortage we can do with, guys.
But there could be a fuel. Then we have methanol, biomethanol. All this kind of fuel can be used to move trucks, buses. That can be also the future, not only electricity. All this fuel is good. We are reducing the footprint, the carbon footprint.
I think a diversity of technologies and fuels, certainly in transitions as well, is an inevitable and important part of the sustainability strategy, as well as the electrification strategy. I think that's probably the time we have for audience questions. I just want to finish with the final... Oh, sorry, did someone? So you see, this is where I'm the one in control, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I need to be the one in control of these things. But I will give over control to so that the women can ask the question. Thanks. The last question.
Thank you. My name is Laura Ferrer. I'm from the Universidad Panamericana, and my question is, how are you working on changing the cultural mindset of your clients to step forward into the renewable energy technology?
Changing cultural mindset. Maybe Paco, you can take on this one because it's an important point you
I
wanted
think
to.
you have seen from Audi our fantastic e-tron. That is the best example I can give you, because if you come up with fantastic products that will convince your clients, you don't need to do anything else. No? Of course, there is an education effort behind it in terms of marketing strategies and so on, but truly the best way to convince our customers to change to different technologies is really to put on hand of our customers a fantastic product. And we are trying to really doing that, and we have amazing products right now on the market that you can really check out, and for sure you will be convinced. I am really sure.
I'm pretty sure BMW can also offer this.
For my point of view...
Just not an advert now for a Volkswagen truck.
For truck is different a little bit. Who convince the truck owner to change for a new technology is all the stakeholders, because the truck is a way to work. If this way of work are doing emissions, if we're going to hire a company, you can choose a company who do more emission or do less emission. That's the future. The quantity of the emission when logistics provider are spending will be one of the drivers to define is one or lose a bit. So that's my point of view. So that's the way. If one company, a transport company, a carrier company, a logistics service provider, want to keep on the market, have to take care about your trucks, about how much emission are doing, because all the stakeholders are going to request a position for this company.
Maybe to add one sentence to what Paco said. Yes, exciting products is the one thing, and I think as we sit here, we're all prepared to offer exciting products on the Mexican market. But clearly, we're highly dependent on the infrastructure. So if you don't have a charging structure, the customer will not be able to use the product. So this is where we need to have the close collaboration also then with the authorities to make sure that infrastructure will be set up. And with the infrastructure, I'm very convinced that the amount of electrical cars that we will see on the roads will grow significantly.
Yes.
And that's where I want to just make my last question. You raised it rightfully on the infrastructure, and we heard this morning from Jose Zizaya on the need for the clean energy side. These are key aspects that will be needed to support Mexico as a competitive player in the sustainable electrified future mobility market. But for you, from your logistics partners, from your supply chain logistics partners in the transition, let's say over the next 5 years, what do you need most now, or what do you need them to start considering working with you on to help be successful in this transition to start producing and distributing electric vehicles in this next era? We're going to start with you on that, Paco.
I would say we need to really start discussing it in the first place. So because we talk too little about it, and to strengthen the communication is really to start sharing our plans, to start sharing how do we face the challenges together. I know we are transporting right now batteries and electrical components for our cars, but still we need a lot of communication, interchange. How do we work together for the future, and how big is going to be the necessity of our infrastructure, our legal situation, and what is the framework where we need to work, and also how do we build together competence in our groups so that they can manage any given situation that will come up in the future, any given technology, and of course, how do we face together the challenges that will come towards us with this new technology, because there are a lot of things that we still don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe the last thought from you, Siegfried.
I think very important topic for us is local. So we're really looking for many new or established local partners that are willing to invest into this electrification topic, because it's a nightmare for us having to import most of the products, be it from the US but also from overseas. And we're clearly focusing on finding local partners, because this is our aim there. And obviously, since the situation is still unpredictable, flexibility is also a key factor for us.
Absolutely.
So those two, find local partners that are willing to go with us in this direction, plus showing the flexibility with changing opportunities or changing conditions on the market.
Absolutely. Great. Anything you'd add there, Fabio?
Yes, that's definitely is very important to have the infrastructure. For example, in the last Expo Transport in Puebla, all the brands has electric truck, but the European has the AC2, the American AC1, the Chinese has both or a different one. So we could have a place to connect, but you couldn't connect because the connectors are different. We need to establish a standard for the market to run that. For after sales, you need to train a lot the technicians. It's a completely new technology. The trucks are very safe, but if the technician don't know how to fix, could be danger. So that's how infrastructure and training. The dealers must be very trained to how to fix and how to be safe fixes. Yeah.
So definitely a need for more knowledge and training, infrastructure, local partners here in Mexico to support this transition, and ongoing flexibility. But the good news, as we discussed over the last 2 days, is that Mexico is incredibly flexible. It's a competitive advantage. We've established that, and I think it will serve it very well in this transition. But I think, and that's the note we're gonna end the conference on. That competitive advantage and flexibility that so many have stressed, but also that thirst for knowledge and development, which we've also seen. And our final panel here has really helped us articulate that in a great way. And I thank you all for your time and openness with our audience here.